This is Blackstone Joe, and you're listening to Slick Talk.
If I say I'm an oil man, you will agree.
There's the stink of oil about him.
Hello, and welcome into episode 120 of Slick Talk. I'm your host, Blackstone Joe, and as you likely gathered, we will be delving into the forums. Why? Well, let's just say that we've been aware, pretty much since the beginning of this business, that on the various forums in which topics relating to oil and things that need oil to run, we are aware of the Blackstone name being thrown in the mix, either due to folks sending us certain threads or maybe against our better judgment, we'll be floating around those forums ourselves, just seeing what's in the water, as it were. Now, when it comes to claims about what certain results might mean, or folks debating amongst themselves about how they feel about a certain result, it's not really a healthy practice, I don't think, to engage in that sort of debate online, in the sense that we let the comment speak for itself in terms of how we evaluate results, what we think could or could not be a problem, so on and so forth. Our comment is our comment on the matter. So whatever is contained in the report, you can bank on that being our honest opinion. And if you pay for the result, you want to gain additional commentary from people outside of Blackstone's walls, well, that's your prerogative. But what has taken my interest, I think, over the years, are claims that are patently false about Blackstone, what we offer, what we don't offer, how we do testing, so on and so forth. I think it is good to correct the record in that regard, because you, the listener, might be from these forums, might be engaging with these threads, and perhaps you've come across one of these claims I'm going to talk about today, and clarification on the matter is worthwhile. So I want to get into a few of these, and they cover a fairly wide range. So if you have any interest in testing and how we go about it, I'd wager this show has something for you. Now, one point I do want to make before we jump into the various forum takes that I've assembled is I'm not going to delve into the username or, where you can find this thread, because I'm not here to do battle with a particular user. I don't want to single people out. This isn't about engaging in direct debate, because I think it's entirely possible some of these folks have been misinformed themselves, and I don't want to embarrass them or call them out specifically. It's about correcting the record. It's about finding things that I think are worthwhile for discussion on this show. So I want to get the ball rolling by clearing up something of a misconception that I found on the forum, which is that, quote, it appears they, referring to Blackstone, prioritized local samples over what comes in the mail. So this really comes down to process, and it's not merely a "ha, you're wrong, dunk on you" type of thing. There is a difference in the way that samples are found and unpacked that requires a bit of discussion. So no, we are not seeking out all the local samples and pushing them to the front of the line. What can happen is, if you are local, you walk in, you hand it to someone walking around, whether it be a login person, maybe it's a writer, or you might hand it to the president, Ryan, or the vice president, Kristen. We have it in hand. We don't have to go looking for it. And we can position it if it's urgent, you need it right away. And I would also add that it's not merely those who walk in the lobby and hand it to us that could get their samples prioritized. If you do pay for FedEx, UPS, DHL, there's very few of those arriving at a time. So it's a lot easier for us to prioritize them if they need be. So no, we're not looking for any samples from Fort Wayne or the surrounding areas and giving them, first look. It's merely a situation where if you hand it to us, that's a different process. So if you do need a result urgently, you're in a pre-buy situation, you're buying an aircraft or a boat, or you're convinced there's a problem, you can get first look quicker by sending it via UPS, FedEx, because again, they're only dropping off, one or two, or you can walk in the lobby and let us know it's urgent. But yeah, again, it's really more so about the volume that we're dealing with. It's a lot harder, a lot more time consuming to go into a sea of 600 samples and find that one than it is you making the drop off. But it's got nothing to do with location, just that we're able to take care of it right then, right there. And I think that's, it's worth explaining because folks that are dealing with a situation where, turnaround time is very important. If you do send it next day or you walk in, that does benefit you. So not trying to push anyone to the back that's sending it via USPS. Just keep in mind the volume that we deal with. Next up, we have the take, quote, "They don't offer oxidation." And I think that's crucial to have. Well, I have good news for anyone that thinks oxidation is crucial. You can, in fact, request oxidation when you send your sample in. I think this misconception may come from the fact that oxidation is not part of our standard analysis. Now, the standard analysis covers the bases for the vast majority of our customers. This will tell you how the system you're sampling is wearing, if there's contamination from coolant or excess dirt, fuel, the viscosity, insolubles that show you how oil filtration is performing, so on and so forth. That tends to cover the bases for a lot of people. Oxidation, more of a specialized test, more of a specialized result. However, you can in fact request that. If you need it, just be sure to write on the paperwork that you are interested in oxidation and we'll provide it. The test is $20 on its own. However, pricing can vary if you are a bulk customer who is paying for analysis ahead of time for the discount. Please do just call us or email bstone@blackstone-labs. If you have any questions about pricing, if you are bundling together various tests, as people who are interested in oxidation often are. So just reach out and we will clarify pricing for you. Rest assured, you can request oxidation. It's simply just not part of the standard analysis. I think that might be where the confusion came in on that one. All right, next up, we have a whopper of a take here, which is that in order to accurately measure fuel dilution, you need to run the sample through gas chromatography. Blackstone does not do this. They guess at the dilution based on flash point and viscosity, unquote. Okay, so a lot to suss out here. First off, it is true that Blackstone does not offer gas chromatography. If you've listened to past episodes such as State of the Stone, where I had president of Blackstone, Ryan Stark, on the show, we talked about the flashpoint, why we offer it, how long we've offered it. It's been part of our operation from the get-go, and it works for us. And we rely on specifically ASTM D92, which is the Cleveland Open Cup test method approved by the American Society for Testing and Materials in 1921. This does predate gas chromatography by a little bit. That test was first introduced in 1951 to 1952. However, importantly, we can rely on the flash point to determine if excess fuel is present because the nature of solvent-based contamination, the nature of the way fuel impacts the oil by lowering that flash point, it has not changed. You can still rely on a low flash point to speak to fuel dilution. Now, there are many ways to skin a cat. Yes, you can detect fuel with gas chromatography. Yes, you can detect fuel with a flash point. So you're going to have a different approach depending on the laboratory. And look, if you favor one or the other, that is definitely within your right. But where I will absolutely be at odds with this take is the idea that we guess at it based on the flash and viscosity, which is wholeheartedly incorrect. The flash point is what determines fuel and how much of it is present. The viscosity does not have any bearing on the way in which we calculate fuel. Rather, the viscosity speaks to how that fuel is impacting the oil. It does not have any bearing, however, on how much is present. We do not look at the viscosity in conjunction with the flash point and then be like, looks like 4% based on the... No. So I can understand having a preference. However, I do want to clarify our analysis and the way we arrive at these things because that matters. And I think it also speaks to part of our operation that I really like, which is the fact that we are using the entirety of the report to tell you how a contaminant is affecting the system that's being sampled. I think that's valuable insight, and I don't want to confuse that with basing the calculation. Knowing how that fuel is impacting your motor is important. knowing how metals, where those stack up, knowing the viscosity, if it's obviously being thinned below spec, if the additives in the oil are being diluted notably by fuel. Those are all data points that can tell you more about what's happening as a result of that contaminant. Oftentimes, minor amounts of fuel dilution won't have a significant effect on the oil. The viscosity will be fine. Additives will be at typical levels, so on and so forth. So gaining that insight from the remainder of the report is valuable, but it does not have a bearing on the calculation of fuel. We can detect fuel system problems. In fact, we do on a daily basis. So whatever method you prefer, we're talking about 2 ways to skin a cat here. And the flashpoint, which is what we use, again, following ASTM method D92, if you want to look it up and learn more about the Cleveland Open Cup method, you're welcome to. If you have any questions, just let us know. However, when it comes to the analysis, that's the main thing I wanted to clear up is how we arrive at that calculation, which again, the lower the flash, the more fuel. Then we're going to look at the rest of the report to tell you what effect it's having. Next up, we have one that's a little bit more clear-cut in the sense that this one's an easy answer here. In response to the take, quote, TBN does not matter unless it's in diesel, unquote. Now, look, I don't know the origin of some of these takes here in the sense I'm not sure where they're coming from with this analysis of their own, but you can rest assured if you are a gasoline engine owner, it makes just as much sense as if you are a diesel engine owner. The TBN tells you how much active additive is remaining. And you'll find that gasoline and diesel engine oils both have a high starting TBN. Diesel might be a bit higher due to a stronger additive package, but gasoline engine oil, it has a TBN that starts usually around 9 or 10, and then it drops as the oil is doing its job. And both of these respective oil types, once they reach a low point, which is generally about 2.0, is where there's not a significant amount of active additive left. And that typically means you want to keep the oil change interval where it is, rather than run significantly longer than that. That's valuable insight if you're a gasoline engine owner, just like it's valuable insight if you're a diesel engine owner. It's a data point that is useful either way. So I'm not sure the origin of that take. You don't want to see a low TBN in either case. And if it's sufficiently high, again, for either engine type, then that, along with the remainder of your report, will aid in our suggestion of whether or not you run longer between oil changes. So that's certainly a huge motivator for people to send in samples in the first place. So if you're a gasoline engine owner that stumbled upon that take and you have any sort of confusion about whether you should be interested in it, you can rest assured that if you're looking to run longer, if you're wondering if your oil change interval is too long, if you need to dial it back, a TBN is useful for you, just like it's useful for a diesel engine owner. That's all I have for today's Battle in the Forums. If you have stumbled across any forum takes, claims, interpretations of Blackstone and who we are and what we do that you want clarification on, if you're wondering if they're accurate or not, I would be happy to review those. Feel free to email bstone@blackstone-labs.com. Again, I was leaving out, I think, the vast majority of threads when they cover things like, oh, you should really care about this result, though. That's the one you need to. I'm not going to get into that. Our comment speaks for itself. We cover what we see as evidence of a problem. If you are looking for any additional explanation of what certain elements are from, what they mean, I would encourage you to check out the report explanation either on our website, or you can reply back to the email that had your report, as well as just giving us a call at 260-744-2380. We're happy to explain any result that you have additional questions on, but when it comes to calling out a problem, when it comes to seeing evidence of one, you can be confident that we cover it in the comment. So I'm not here to welcome an argument with people who are like disregarding the comment. They're free to do that. But if you have a direct statement about what we do, about how we arrive at a comment that I see needs to be corrected, I will certainly take that opportunity just to correct the record and make sure that you know exactly what we offer. Now, if you are someone who is thinking, well, I want that gas chromatography, it's like, okay, I won't lie to you. That's not a test that we do. We do the flashpoint. But if you want to get into how the flashpoint's conducted, or if we're using this test or that test, or how we base our calculation, that's the nitty-gritty that I think is easy to suss out, easy to explain. And if you are someone who sent your sample in the mail and you're wondering about, where it might be in the process, I would encourage you to make note of the tracking number on the label before you send it in. You'll be able to follow it along that way. And then if the sample is in-house and you're wondering when exactly it will be reported, just give us a call. It'll be easy to look that up if you have your client ID handy as well. If you don't, though, we can still find it. Just give us a call and we'll get to it. We're working to improve that turnaround time by way of adding more writers, more lab techs. The construction of another lab is ongoing. So we're responding to an ever-increasing sample volume, which again, thank you to everyone for keeping us busy. And it's all in the name of providing the one-of-a-kind report with a comment that is tailor-made to you and what you need. So thank you all for listening to this episode where we engage with the forums after seeing enough takes that I think needed clarification for you, the listener. I figured it was time that we address those. And again, if you have stumbled upon any others that are not relating to folks debating each other about, what a level of magnesium means or something along those lines, if it's questions about Blackstone, what we do, how we do it, I would love to address those. So again, you can send those along at bstone@blackstone-labs.com. But that's it for today's show. Thanks for hanging with me. This is Blackstone Joe signing off.
The Slick Talk podcast is powered by Blackstone Laboratories. If you're ready to start your oil analysis journey, visit blackstone-labs.com to order your free test kit.